Chapter 1. The Walking Trail. Marcus had been hiking the Appalachian Trail for 3 weeks, but this section through the Cherokee National Forest felt different. The trees seemed to lean in closer, and the familiar sounds of wildlife had gone silent. His GPS showed he was on the right path, but something felt wrong. The trail markers were old, weathered beyond recognition, and the path itself seemed to shift when he wasn't looking directly at it. As dusk approached, Marcus decided to make camp. He'd passed several other hikers earlier in the day, and the solitude was starting to unnerve him. He set up his tent in a small clearing, built a fire, and settled in for the night. The first sign of trouble came around midnight. Marcus woke to the sound of footsteps circling his tent, slow, deliberate steps that crunched on the fallen leaves. He grabbed his flashlight and unzipped the tent flap. Nothing. The footsteps stopped the moment he looked outside. Marcus waited, listening, but heard only the wind in the trees. He was about to retreat back into his tent when he noticed something that made his blood freeze. Around his tent, in a perfect circle, were dozens of footprints, but they weren't normal prints. They were too deep, too perfectly formed, as if someone had been walking in the exact same steps for hours. Marcus broke camp at first light and started hiking again. He needed to reach the next shelter, needed to be around other people, but as he walked, he realized the footprints were following him. Every few hundred yards, he'd stop and look back. There, in the soft earth of the trail, were the same deep impressions, always the same distance behind him, always matching his pace. The trail began to climb, winding up the side of a mountain. Marcus's legs burned with exertion, but he didn't dare stop. The footprints were getting closer. At the top of the ridge, he found an old cemetery. Most of the headstones were broken or so weathered the names were illegible. But one caught his attention, a tall monument with a clear inscription, "In memory of the Cherokee who walked this trail of tears." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the mountain air. This wasn't just any trail. This was one of the original routes of the forced removal, where thousands had died from disease, starvation, and exposure. The footsteps behind him stopped, but now he could hear others, dozens of them, surrounding the cemetery. Soft footfalls, like people walking barefoot on stone, and voices, whispers in a language he didn't understand, carried on the wind. Marcus pulled out his phone to call for help, but there was no signal. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. He could feel eyes watching him from between the trees, but whenever he looked directly, there was nothing there. A child's cry echoed through the forest, thin, reedy, full of pain, then another, and another. The sound of weeping filled the air, so many voices that Marcus couldn't distinguish individual cries. He ran. Down the mountain, crashing through undergrowth, not caring about the trail. Behind him, the weeping followed. Not just the sound of it, but the presence of it, grief so profound it seemed to bend the air around him. Marcus ran until his lungs burned and his legs gave out. When he finally stopped, gasping for breath, he found himself at a road. A park ranger's truck was parked nearby, and the ranger was walking toward him. "You okay, son? You look like you've seen a ghost." Marcus looked back at the forest. The weeping had stopped, but he could still feel them watching all those who had walked this trail before him, all those who had never made it home. "Something like that," Marcus said. The ranger nodded knowingly. "Cherokee Trail section, right? We get a lot of hikers come down from there looking spooked. Some trails carry more than just footprints." Chapter 2. The Jogger's Route. Emma had been running the same route every morning for 2 years, a 5-mile loop through Riverside Park that took her past the old mill ruins and back along the creek. She knew every turn, every hill, every landmark. But this morning, something was wrong. The path seemed longer than usual, and the familiar landmarks weren't where they should be. The old oak tree with the carved initials was missing, replaced by a young sapling that couldn't have been more than a few years old. The wooden bridge over the creek had been replaced by an old stone arch that looked like it had been there for decades. Emma checked her fitness watch. She'd been running for 30 minutes, but she should have completed the loop by now. She stopped and looked around, trying to get her bearings. The park looked the same, but different. The trees were in the wrong places. The paths curved where they should have been straight. And it was too quiet, no birds, no insects, no sound of traffic from the nearby road. "Excuse me," a voice called from behind her. Emma turned to see a young woman in old-fashioned running clothes, cotton shorts, and a sleeveless shirt that looked like something from the 1950s. Her hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and she wore canvas sneakers that had seen better days. "Are you lost too?" the woman asked, jogging up to Emma. I think so. This is my regular route, but everything looks different." The woman nodded sympathetically. "I know the feeling. I've been running this same path for, well, it feels like forever, but I can never seem to find my way back to the parking lot." Emma studied the woman more closely. Her clothes were clearly vintage, but they looked new, as if she'd just bought them. And there was something about her facile, timeless quality that made it hard to determine her age. "What's your name?" Emma asked. Ruth Morrison. I run here every morning before work." "What year is it?" Emma asked, though she wasn't sure why. Ruth laughed, but it sounded hollow. "What a strange question. It's 1954, of course." Emma's blood ran cold. "Ruth, what's the last thing you remember before starting your run today?" Ruth's expression grew confused. I was getting ready for work. I teach at the elementary school, but I wanted to get my run in first. I always run before work." "Ruth," Emma said gently, "what happened to you? On your run?" Ruth's face went blank for a moment, then filled with terror. "The man. There was a man in the woods. He was following me, and I tried to run faster, but he caught me." The park around them began to shift and change. The modern paths faded, replaced by dirt trails. The playground equipment disappeared, leaving only empty grass and scattered trees. "I've been running ever since," Ruth whispered, "trying to get home, but I can never find my way back." Emma felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning air. "Ruth, you need to stop running. You need to go toward the light." "What light?" Ruth asked, but as she spoke, a warm glow began to emanate from the direction of the old mill ruins. "There," Emma said, pointing. "Can you see it?" Ruth's eyes widened. "My mother. I can see my mother." The light grew brighter, and Emma could make out a figure standing in the glow, an elderly woman with her arms outstretched. "I've been waiting for you, Ruth," the woman called. "It's time to come home." Ruth looked at Emma one last time. "Thank you," she said, "for helping me remember." She turned and ran toward the light, her vintage running outfit becoming more transparent with each step. As she reached the glowing figure, both women faded away, leaving Emma alone in the park. The familiar landmark slowly returned. The oak tree with the carved initials reappeared. The stone bridge became wood again, and the sounds of the living world filled the air. Emma's fitness watch showed she'd been running for exactly 5 miles, but as she walked back to her car, she noticed something that made her pause. Near the old mill ruins, someone had placed a small memorial plaque. It read, "In memory of Ruth Morrison, 1928 to 1950, for beloved daughter and teacher, forever young." Emma knelt and touched the plaque. It was warm, as if it had been sitting in sunlight, though the morning was still cool and gray. "You're home now," she whispered. Chapter 3. The Bicycle Path. Kevin had been cycling the same trail every weekend for 3 years, a 20-mile loop through the state park that took him past the lake, through the woods, and back to the parking area. He knew every hill, every turn, every mile marker. But this Saturday, something was different. At mile marker 7, where the trail curved around the old quarry, Kevin saw another cyclist about 100 yards ahead. The rider was moving slowly, weaving slightly, as if having trouble maintaining balance. Kevin pedaled harder to catch up. As he got closer, he could see it was a young man, maybe early 20s, wearing a vintage cycling outfit, wool shorts, a cotton jersey, and a leather helmet that looked like something from the 1950s. "Hey," Kevin called out as he pulled alongside. "You okay?" The young man looked over at him, and Kevin's blood ran cold. The rider's face was gray, his eyes sunken, and there was a terrible gash across his forehead that seemed to seep darkness rather than blood. I can't stop," the young man gasped. "I have to keep going. I have to finish the race." Kevin looked around. There was no race, no other cyclists, no spectators, just the two of them on the empty trail. "What race?" Kevin asked. "The championship, state championship. I've been training for months. I can't give up now." Kevin noticed that the young man's bicycle was as vintage as his Clothinga steel frame with simple gears and thin tires, and like its rider, it seemed to be fading in and out of focus. "What's your name?" Kevin asked. Billy Chen. I'm going to win this race. I'm going to show them all." "Billy, when is this race supposed to take place?" "Today, October 18th, 1956. I'm in second place, but I can catch up. I know I can." Kevin's heart sank. "Billy, what happened to you? During the race?" Billy's expression grew confused. "I was coming around the quarry curve, going too fast, trying to catch the leader. My tire hit something, and I went over the handlebars. Hit my head on the rocks." "How long ago was that?" "Just now, I think. Or maybe it was longer. I keep riding, but I can never seem to finish the race." Kevin looked at the quarry, then back at Billy. "Billy, you need to stop riding. You need to rest." "But the race is over. It's been over for almost 70 years. Billy's bike began to slow, and Kevin could see the confusion and fear in his eyes. "I don't understand. I was winning. I was going to win." "Maybe you did win," Kevin said gently. "Maybe crossing the finish line isn't about the race anymore." As they rode side by side, Kevin noticed something ahead, a shimmer in the air, like heat waves rising from pavement, but it was cool October day, and there was no sun. "There's something up there," Billy said, pointing toward the shimmer. As they got closer, Kevin could see what it was, a finish line, with a banner stretched between two poles, and standing beside it was an elderly Asian man in a coach's jacket, holding a stopwatch. "Billy," the man called out. "Come on, son, you can do it." Billy's face lit up with recognition. "Coach Martinez, you're here." "I've been waiting for you to finish," the coach said. "You've been going around in circles for long enough. Time to cross the line." Billy looked at Kevin one last time. "Will you tell them? Will you tell them I finished?" "I will," Kevin promised. Billy pedaled toward the finish line, his vintage bike becoming more solid with each rotation of the wheels. As he crossed the line, Coach Martinez clicked his stopwatch and smiled. "Personal best, Billy. Personal best." Both figures faded into the shimmer, leaving Kevin alone on the trail. But where the finish line had been, someone had carved into a tree, "Billy Chen, 1938, 1956. He never gave up. Kevin touched the carving, feeling the rough bark under his fingers. It was warm, as if the tree had been holding onto Billy's memory all these years, waiting for someone to witness his final race.